Welcome back to the shop, everybody. In this Carveco tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this simple yet elegant little clock that you could give away as a gift, hang in your office or in your home, etc. I'm going to walk you through the steps from start to finish. As always, there's different ways to do things, probably 100 different ways in this case, but in this video I'm going to show you how I produced this nice looking little clock. So in order to make this clock, the first thing we need to do is locate the image that we used to make the clock. So you're going to go to a Google search. I've taken the liberty of already typing in what we're looking for. You'll type in clock vectors and this word right here. I don't know how that's pronounced, but it's spelled A-L-A-M-Y. Click on the Images tab. It'll bring up all of these clock faces, and you can choose through these and pick different ones to make your own clock with, but we're going to make the clock that I made, and this is the image that I used to make that clock. You're going to right click on the clock. You're going to save the image as, left click obviously. You want to place this on your desktop. Click desktop over here. Change the name, something that you can use, that you can remember. And then you're going to save it. Now I'm not going to because I already have it on my desktop. Let's close this out. I don't need two of them. And it's right here. Alright, let's go to our old friend Carveco and open him up. You're going to open a new model. You're going to set your dimensions 14 by 14, and that's just an arbitrary setting. It's going to change. You're going to set your origin in the center. At least that's where I set it. That's where I like to do most of my projects, are with the origin in the middle. It just gives me more room to play around the outside with, and if I make a mistake setting up the origin here, it can run a project off of your stock. However, we're working in inches. Let's click OK. Okay, now we have our work surface open. You're going to reduce the size of your screen. We're going to find our clock up here on this left. Left click your mouse and drag him into the work area. You can see here that as it comes in at 1,377 inches in height, 1,300 inches in width. Obviously we don't want a clock that big, so change this figure right here to 12. Which will be 12 inches. Disregard the fact that this says 11.3. That's not important for what we're doing here. Click OK. Alright, the clock is in now. Let's maximize this back up so we can see what we're doing. Now the next step is to create the vectors. And as you can see along the bottom here, these are the colors that the computer sees. We don't see that many. We see maybe a red, black, and a white. But the computer sees all of this. We have to reduce this so that the computer sees what we see, basically. And in order to do that, we go to Vector. We go to Bitmap to Vector. And we're going to reduce the colors with this button right here. As you can see, the computer sees or is seeing 254 shades of that color, or 254 different colors. Way too many to make this work. We're going to take this all the way down to 2 colors. If you click on this little bar here and slide all the way to the left, you'll see that all of these colors, or these shades, have gone away. Click Apply. Over here on the left you can see primary and secondary color boxes. You're going to want to switch those around so that black is the primary. And the way you do this is to click on the white box. No, that's not the way you do it. You click on that arrow. Next step is to create the vectors, which basically is no more than clicking this Create Vectors button if you have everything set. We're done with the bitmap to vector screen. Close that out. Now it doesn't look that different, but the vectors are there. The easiest way to see them is to come over to this side of the screen. On the line that is bitmap, click on those light bulbs. and it turns off the colors and leaves you with just the vectors. The next thing we need to do is remove all of the unwanted things on this image. The handles, the second hand, the words down here. There's a square going around this image that we don't want. The way we remove this is to click off of the picture. Everything goes black. And we begin picking and choosing what we want to remove. Now you can use the clip tool or the trim vectors tool down here. That's a little bit slow and tedious. If you left click and drag across the bottom of the handles, releasing about here, you'll see that it highlights a majority of what we're trying to get rid of. Once you've done this, hit delete on your keyboard and they'll disappear. Now right here and right there are two items that need to be gotten off of this image, or it will mess with your clock. Your toolpath, it'll come right over and try to drill those out for you, and you don't want that mistake. So highlight these two little guys, delete them. Try this one more time. There we go. Backing back out. Like I said, there's one right here. It's actually three when you zoom in. We will delete those by hitting delete on the keyboard, and they're gone. Now, on this number 10 here, you can see a little discrepancy. When I carved this out, I didn't pay any attention to that. I didn't fix it. I didn't play around and try to make that join, and you cannot see it in the carving once it's complete. Let's back this out and get it back in the center. Here's a trick. Put that there. It puts it back in the center if you click this. Now we also need to get rid of the square that's going around this object. We'll click right here. We'll delete that. Like I said, we want to get rid of these words. We want to get rid of the little circles in the words. And just make sure you want to zoom in and make sure that you haven't forgotten anything. And once you've done that, the next step is to group all of these vectors together, and it's very important that you remember to do that. If I don't group them, let's say I click on this 7, the only thing that's highlighted at that point is the 7. If I try it with the 1 is the only thing that will highlight. That means when you go to make your tool paths, you're going to have to click on each individual piece here, and that's going to become extremely tedious. So in order to stop that, so you don't have to, click in the bottom right hand corner, drag left, drag up to the top left, and release. Now they're not grouped yet. You've got to come over here to this little button here, left click that, hold it down. When the fly out menu appears, slide over till your arrow is over the first box and release. They are now grouped, and we'll prove it. Let's click off of the picture. Let's pick a number this time and see what happens. As you can see, every vector lights up. Now when you're doing this carving, zoom in just a bit here to try and make it easier to see. Your friend is going to be F9, which will put everything in the center of your workspace. So we click F9. Doesn't move much, but it's very important that you do that step. The next step is to start creating the circular bands that are going around the clock, the little hole in the center, and the cutoff band. Click on the circle creation tool over here. Start in the center and start dragging out a circle. Now it doesn't matter, you don't have to be precise with this because we're going to come over here and we're going to put in the size we want. And in this case we're doing the first ring on the outside of those little hash marks. That first ring is 10 inches in diameter. Click create. Go back to your friend F9 and put that back in the center. As you can see now, that is why it's important, because the ring is now evenly spaced around the hash marks. Okay, the next one, we'll put the center hole in. Click and drag out again. I know that's an enormous hole, but we are going to put it in here by typing in what we want. So this is not important. This is. Let's start with a 1/4 inch hole. Click create. Our old friend F9 one more time pops it in the middle. Now, in order to make the V-bit carve this line, you have to have a secondary line next to it. If you don't do that, When you do your toolpath, the V-bit thinks you want to clean this all off. It will try to carve this entire dead space. We don't want it to do that. So let's go over here to offset, click on that, highlight this ring, because we're going to offset this ring. We want to offset distance of 0.06, and that's just a number that I came up with that seems to work very well. We want to outwards or to the right offset. Everything else is correct. We want sharp lines. What else have we got here? Select resulting offset is checked, and we'll hit offset. Now, as you can see, it's not much. When we zoom in, you can see that there's 2 lines there, but it is enough to tell that V-bit to ride in the center of those two marks, or 2 vectors if we're going to use technical terms. Click on this box again to pop this thing back in the middle. So now we have the center hole, the outer ring, and we need the far outer ring to cut this clock off with. So we'll go back to the circle tool here. Again, it's an arbitrary movement just to start the circle. It doesn't matter where you do it. Start your circle, and the outside ring is 11 1/4 inches. Create that ring, go back to your old friend F9, pops it back in the middle. So now we're in pretty good shape. We can start to create some vectors. One thing I want to point out is this circle in the center is 1/4 inch. When you receive your mechanicals, the device that's actually the clock, the guts, the nuts and bolts of the clock, you may have to increase this hole. I did that by hand with a hand drill. The reason we start with 1/4 inch is because I don't know the exact diameter of the clock mechanism until I have it in my hand. The same thing goes for the back side of the clock. You'll have to cut that in by hand with a router or some other tool and recess the clock mechanism into the back of the clock. Now, if you so desire, order the clock mechanism so that you can measure and know exactly what you have. You could start on the back side of your stock, find the center, hog away that square that you're going to make for a recess for the mechanism, and then flip your piece over, maintaining the 0 and the Z and the X and Y. Then you could drill this hole out to the exact diameter that you need for your mechanism. I found it's just easier to do it by hand on the back side of the clock with a router and a flat end mill. So now let's make some tool paths. This is going to be a 2-bit carve. We're going to use a V-bit, and we're going to use a 1/4 inch end mill. Let's start with the V-bit. 2 ways to do this. You can click up here to create a V-bit carving, or you can double click here to open up your toolpath operations on the side. As I said, we're doing a V-bit carving, and here's why grouping these are so important. I can click on this at any point now, and it will highlight all of that vectors, all of your hash lines, all of your numbers, everything. Push Shift on the keyboard, because this is also done, this inner ring is also done with a V-bit. So click on each one of those. You can back out again so that you can see what you're doing. Click on V-bit toolpath. Start depth is 0. I set the maximum depth at 1/4 inch. We need to select a tool, and in this case I used select the tool, continue down. We don't need a roughing tool. We know the safe Z is correct. We do need to click to define the material. I used 1/2 inch thick MDF to create this clock. Click OK once you've done that. You're going to name it. You can name it anything you like. I'll name it clock face. As I've said before, being specific with that name helps you locate the name over here when you're trying to make corrections. So we have the name, we have the material. Let's calculate. And as you can see, we now have tool paths. The next step, close this out, click off of here, highlight the inner circle. We are going to be making a drilling toolpath here. Click on Toolpaths on your right. Click Create Drilling Toolpath. Your start depth is 0. Your finish depth is 1/2 inch because that's how thick your material is. Scroll down. I'm sorry, we need to select a tool first before you scroll down. Select a tool. 1/4 inch end mill. Select it. Click on it one more time and change the tool number to tool number 2. Scroll down. Material thickness is correct. Let's call the name. We'll call it the center hole. Calculate the toolpath. And we're good there. Now close this one out. All that's left is to cut this clock loose now. So click the outer ring to select the vector. We're going to do a contour toolpath. Again, you can click on this up here, or you can click on the contour toolpath on this side. Click toolpaths, contour toolpath. We want an outside profile cut. We want a start depth of 0, a finish depth of 1/2 inch. We need to click to select a tool, obviously. We're going to go back to the 1/4 inch end mill. Select that. Again, open it back up and change it to tool number 2. Scroll down. We do want some bridges or some tabs in this case. I don't want this thing coming loose. I would like 4. I need a length of 1/2 inch. I'd like a height of 1/4 inch. I like 3D bridges. We'll click Add. And as you can see, it puts them all in. Come down here and give this a name now. We'll call this Cutout of the Clock. We will calculate now. And we'll be good to go. So what we'll do is click on Toolpaths, scroll down to Simulate All Toolpaths, and let's see what we get. Hey, look at that, we've got a clock. After we simulate, the next step is to save the toolpaths. Especially after we see that it's correct, we can push the space bar, the left click, and move it around, and you can see that they're actually cut in, the numbers, the hash marks. It's a pretty little thing. Let's go over here to the right hand side. Right click simulation, delete the simulation. Oh my god, it's gone. Not really. Go to 3D view, then go to 2D view, and it comes back. Again, save toolpaths on this side. And you can see that you have one item over here, 2 items over here. You're going to need all of them on this side, and the way that works is the highlighted item on this side. If you click this arrow, it brings it over. This one is highlighted, click, and it brings it over. We want to put these in the proper numeric order, of course. We want tool number 1 on the top. As the machine runs, it picks the top tool first and works its way down. This setup would mess with the computer or mess with the program because it would start with tool number 2, tell you you need a tool change to tool number 1, then ask you to do a tool change again back to number 2. And we obviously don't want that, so click on the center one, and now you can use the up and down arrows to move this into the correct position. We want number 1 at number 1, so there we go. Now, as we look at this, we have another problem. We don't want the clock cut loose before we cut the center hole. So click on the center hole toolpath, click the up arrow, and it will invert those tool processes so that it cuts the center hole and then cuts the clock loose. Now come down here to this bottom and change the name. I can't repeat this enough times. It's that important. Change the name or you're going to delete the last thing you did. So in this case, we're going to put in here clock tutorial, Tutori, whatever it is, and we will save it. I'm not going to save it because I already have this all set up in another tool program. There's no sense in me doing it twice. But there you are, folks. That's how you can generate a nice looking little clock using Carveco software, a little patience, some MDF, a few tools, and a Sunday afternoon. And once you have the basic design carved out, the finish is simple. Spray paint the entire surface black, letting it soak into the numbers, and then sand it back off to the brown and apply several coats of polyurethane. Obviously, you could choose different colors if you'd like, but we liked the brown and the black. Alright folks, as always, I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you think I've earned it, give me a like, a share. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave a comment. I enjoy reading those. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one.